hope we'll all be praying for them, especially for these two that we read the letters from, and that we'll be able to just give them a good send off to Ghana, number one, and pray that the Lord will help them get over there safely and get settled, and pray that their container actually gets from Savannah to Ghana. A lot of times they take a while for those things to get there. So keep them in your prayers, and pray that the Lord would bless and help them. And boy, the Mercers, what a blessing they have been and still are being. And so pray the Lord will bless and help them as they continue on in their ministry there up in Virginia and then around the world too. Amen. So let's open our Bibles now into the book of Exodus, and the things that we're going to be studying tonight will be seen in chapters 13 and 14, I believe it is. And so we'll be looking into that area of the scriptures, and we have come a long way. Moses has been born. He grew up. He left. He went out into the wilderness. He came back, and now he is ready to lead the people. Now, I don't know about you, but God doesn't do anything slowly, does he? He does everything fast, doesn't he? No, he doesn't. He does everything in his time, not in our time. Now, the people of Israel had been crying out for somebody to come and lead them out. But God said, "Okay, I got you. I've got your understanding of what you're talking about, and I've got everything under control." And he says, and so now we just have to wait on the baby to be born and him to grow up. And so we would wonder, why, God, why are you waiting so long? And it's all because we need to learn some things before God works and acts. If we don't, then we won't understand what he's done. I mean, we need to see, why didn't God save you the first time you heard the gospel? Because you didn't know, you had all these things going on in your mind. All these things were saying, well, what if it's wrong? What if it's what these other people are saying? And you know what? The first time you hear the gospel clearly presented, I'm talking about clearly presented, you'll start asking questions, because you'll be thinking about your life and how your life affects your destiny in heaven. And it's not how you live, it's not how you, but it's who you believe in. And his name is Jesus. And so Israel has come a long way now. They have been in their homes. They have eaten the Passover lambs, and they have struck the blood on the doorpost and the lintels. And now the death angel has passed over them. There's a song that says, "When I see the blood, I will pass over you." And that's what he does for us. When he sees the blood, he passes over us. Why? Because death is real. Did you know that we were dead before we were saved? We were dead in trespasses and sins. But then Christ, he did something miraculous in our life. He resurrected us from the dead. And that's what salvation is, a resurrection from the dead. And so Egypt has now pushed God too far. Pharaoh has gone too far, and Pharaoh, he says, I will not let them go. And God said, I got him right where I want him now. And so we've seen redemption by blood. We've seen redemption by bereavement. It was even in the household of Pharaoh that the firstborn died. Can you imagine what he was feeling at that moment of time? Anger, probably. But I think he was feeling like, I caused all this. Because he did. He caused the whole thing when he did not believe in this God of Israel. And God is greater than any gods of the world. Pharaoh may have been going and asking his gods what to do. And the demons were probably telling him all the time. And so we see redemption by blood and redemption by bereavement. And now we're seeing redemption by belief. And they are actually seeing something that they can believe in now. The Jewish people are just like everybody else. They were not convinced, completely convinced that Moses was the right guy for the job. But you know what? After they got out of Egypt, they began to warm up to Moses, and they began to say, "Well, we've got to follow him because God is leading him." And so, redemption by belief. Israel's exodus begins in chapter 13 and verse number 20. And they took their journey from Sukkoth. Sukkoth is in the land of Goshen. And they encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. Now remember, God had already told Moses the route to take. How many times have you said, I'm going to take a certain route, and you find that when you get down in there and the roads are not the same as they used to be, and you find yourself just a little bit lost. You don't know where you are. You don't know where you're going, and I've been there a lot. A lot of times I would be looking on the map and I would say, okay, I've got to turn on a certain road, and then I'd hear a voice from the back seat saying, that road was about 5 miles back. So what do? I turn around and I go back to where I needed to be. And that's my problem. And I've always had to do that. There's no telling how many miles we put on our cars by me not seeing the place that I was supposed to turn or whatever I was supposed to do. And it was almost as bad when I was with my uncle. One time I was in his car, and we were in the mountains, and we were all supposed to several cars of people, and we were all supposed to go to a certain place, and we wound up on this dirt road, and I think this is where I got it all from that uncle, and we were on this dirt road, and we're going around this bend. And we can look down into the valley and see this road down there, and there was all the other cars. They were going to the right place, and we were in the wrong place. So what did we do? It wasn't any place to turn around on that road. So we had to find a place to turn around, and we finally got back to where they all were. But sometimes you learn things the hard way. How many has ever had to learn anything the hard way? I've done that. Been there and done that, and I got the T-shirt as well. Believing in God's leadership is what we're looking at tonight. Believing in God's leadership. Do you believe that God can lead this church? I believe He can too. And who's he going to get to lead this church? He sent somebody to do that, and his name is Pastor David Bentley. He's the guy. He's the one that's to lead this church. He is the one that God is holding responsible for that. He's not holding anybody else responsible for that. Only the pastor. Notice that they had to learn to believe in God's leadership. They had been living in a country that wasn't theirs. for over 200 years. They had been sojourning in the world, which the Egypt is a type of the world, and the world is one of those three things that is against each and every Christian: the world and the flesh and the devil. Those three things, those three are against every one of us. All right, and so he tells us that they take their journey from Sukkoth to Etham. And the word Etham means boundary of the sea. Now, if I was going to choose a route for Israel to go, I would have probably gone back the way that they came from Canaan and gone back up through the land of the Philistines and gone up there. But you know what God said? We're not going that way, because if they see war, they'll turn back and go back into Egypt. If they see war going on down in the Philistines were always at war. They were at war against somebody. You know, they were always trying to make themselves known. And they still are. They still are. We call them today Palestinians. They're in the land of the Philistines. And so we see that they travel down to Etham, the boundary of the sea, and they encamped there. And then Moses was commanded by the Lord to journey to a place called Pi-hahiroth, the mouth of the gorge. The mouth of the gorge. And he goes in to this place, and he says, encamp between Migdal, which is a tower, and I'm assuming that the tower was an Egyptian tower that they were to look over the sea to see if there was any invading forces coming from that direction. And from Migdal and the sea over against Baal Zephon, which that name means Baal of winter. And that was one of the gods of the people of that area. They called him Baal, and he was a false god. He was one of those little g gods, and that means he couldn't do anything, and he had no authority, and he had no power. He was just a dumb idol. You know, idolatry is kind of a ridiculous thing. You've got this stone feature, or maybe it was a wooden feature or something, and they're looking at it, and they're praying to it, and it can't hear them, and it can't answer them. It's never written to them like our God has written to us. It's never. It can never do anything but just stand there and with a stone face. Nothing else. And that's all it is. But behind every idol, the Bible tells us that there is a demon. A demon. Every idol has a demon behind it. That's why we don't have idols in the church. I mean, you know, some people say, well, what's that cross that you have? That's a picture of an empty cross. It tells us about resurrection. It's an empty cross. It's not a cross that's occupied. And, God tells us to take up our cross and follow him. That's what Christ told us to do, take up our cross. And what is that? It's just leave everything behind and serve him. Like James and John and Peter and Andrew and all the disciples did. They just left everything. They left their father, they left their livelihoods, they left everything and went and followed Jesus. And so he was commanded to go to this place, and then the people learned to believe in God's protection there. No sooner had they gotten down there, right there beside the sea, and it's this particular place, there's mountains on one side, and there's the sea on the other side, and then there's the mouth of this gorge, and they're inside the gorge. It's kind of like one of those what do they call them in the cowboy pictures? You know, they not a gully. What do they call them? I can't remember. This learned to live in my life. Amen. But if he, if they go into a box canyon, they're kind of like in a box canyon, except there's the sea on one side, there's a mountain on the other side, and then the opening is right there. And they look and they see this cloud of dust coming, and they all look behind them, and they it's not good to look behind when you're supposed to be going away. Don't look behind, because that's not where you should look. But they were looking behind, but remember, there was a mixed multitude with them. There was a lot of people there that they were sort of what we call tag-alongs. They just sort of came along because they were trying to get away anyhow. And they went and they looked behind them and they said, "What are we going to do now? The army's coming. The whole Egyptian army is coming, and they're going to kill us all." And they didn't have an idea what they were going. You know what had happened? Pharaoh had hardened his heart. God had hardened Pharaoh's heart so many times. Now Pharaoh's just he's gotten used to it, and he's hardened his heart again. And he said, "What are we doing? Well, let's go get them. They were free labor. Let's just get them and take them back." And so he had 600 chariots and horsemen and his army, and they overtook them encamping by the sea. Now there they are. They're having a camp out, probably singing Kumbaya and everything else. And there they are, on the side of the sea, and everybody wants to go to the beach, so that's where they are, and they're on the beach, and they're just they were just enjoying the being away from Egypt and away from all of that they had been a part of, and now they look up and they see their heart is just right there in their throats, and they say, "Oh no, they're following us. They're going to." And we can't, and we have nowhere to run. We have nowhere to go. And so what happens? The people learn to believe in God's protection. They learned it by seeing what God is going to do. Now, they had no idea what God was going to do. They thought their goose was cooked. And they didn't even have a goose. Amen? And they thought that this was going to be the end of it for them. And just as they thought that, they said, what is the modern day term? They were between a rock and a hard place. They had no idea what they were going to do. And they look at Moses and they said, "Moses, why have you brought us out into the desert to die like this? Why have you done this?" They blame Moses. Well, they didn't want to blame God, because God might smite them with something, and they would be dead then. But he says, "Why have you brought us into the wilderness to die out here in this wilderness?" And Moses said to them, all he said was, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." That's all he knew to say to them. I believe that was inspired by God. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You see, they did not believe that God had done great things for them yet. They didn't understand, because they weren't in every home seeing all the dead people. They weren't in every home with all the animals dead too, the firstborn. They weren't. They didn't see all that. All they knew is they were to go out, and they left. And so he tells them this: the Lord shall fight for you. You know, that's a wonderful thing to hear, but it's hard to believe. Why would the Lord fight for us? We've gotten ourselves into this situation, but they hadn't, because they were following God. They were following his leadership. He told them to go this way. He told them to be at this certain place at this time. And then what he said to them was, and he says, and you shall hold your peace. They always were busy with their talk. They just had to say something. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? Where's this? Where's that? They were a bunch of whiny brats. They'd been in bondage. They'd been in slavery. God delivers them, and they go out there and they say, well, now what's God going to do? Well, of course he's going to do something. He didn't just bring them out there to let them die in the sand on the beach there. Now, notice that and the Lord said unto Moses, criest thou unto me? Why are you crying unto me, Moses? I've told you what to do. And they had to learn to believe in God's deliverance. They had to believe that God was able to do it, and then they had to believe that God would do it. And notice that in chapter 14 and verse number 15, he says this: the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward. And which way is forward? You remember when Jesus was with his disciples on the Sea of Galilee after his resurrection, and he was on the beach, and he had all these fish cooking and everything. I bet they were smelling that when they were out there on the water, and they saw this man standing over there. They didn't know who it was, but it was Jesus. And he says, children, have you any meat? And they said, no, we fished all night. We caught nothing. Nothing, zero. And he says, cast your net on the right side of the boat. And that leads us to this great question. Which side of the boat was the right side? And, they had been fishing on both sides of the boat. And I'm thinking that they're scratching their heads and they're saying, well, this guy over here, he says to throw our net on the right side of the boat. Is it our right side or is it his right side? Is it the left side of where is it? Well, I don't think they were fishing on the left side or the right side. They were fishing on the wrong side because there was no fish where they were fishing. But he said to throw it on the right side. He said they threw it out one more time. And obviously it was the right side. They caught 153 great fish. I mean, big fish. They were all big fish. They weren't anything small, And so they learned to believe in Jesus, that he was able to do what he said. And now God is telling a nation, go forward. Okay, they said, okay, forward. Now, the army of the Egyptians is behind us. And the mountain is on one side and the sea is on the other side. Which side, where do we go forward? And you know what? God was, he just told the Lord, he just told him, go forward. And so Moses, what did he do? He lifted up his rod and stretched it over the sea. I mean, he could have stretched it over the mountain. I guess he would have made a way through the mountain. But he made a way through the sea for them. In the most unusual way, in the most daring way, in the most divine way. He made a way through the sea for them to go through on dry ground. You know how long it takes a lake, if it's drying up, to actually the bottom of it to be hard enough for you to walk on? About 20 years. After that lake is drained, you drain the lake, about 20 years for that to evaporate the water out of it and everything. And that is a really long time. They did not have that long. Amen. They only had just a few minutes, but you know what? God began to do some things that showed them that they were okay. The angel of the Lord was going before them, and he went around behind them and stood between them and the Egyptian army. And when the angel of the Lord does that, that's called a Christophany. That is or a theophany, and that is when a pre New Testament appearance of Jesus Christ. And he was there. He was there, and he was standing between the armies of Egypt and the armies and the people of God. Now, the people of God were they didn't have any arms. I mean, they didn't have any swords. They didn't have any chariots. They could have hit them with a piece of bread or something, I guess. They had some unleavened bread, or their kneading troughs or whatever. They could have hit them with something, but that's about all they had. But they had God. And he went and removed himself and went behind, and the pillar of a cloud went behind them and came between them and the Egyptians. It was a cloud of darkness to the Egyptians, but to Israel it was a light. Can you imagine what it was like? The Egyptians were over there and said, "Oh no, we've been through this, and it took 3 days to get the lights back on, and now we don't, now we can't see it again." And so they and it kept them apart all night. And so, but they were still over there complaining. Why do you think that? Because that's what people do. They just complain. Well, if you had just done such and such, we would have been able to do this. If you had just gone such and such a way, we would have been able to get around this. We wouldn't have had this problem if you hadn't done something else. And the pastor's trying to preach, what is he trying to do? Do what God said. Pastor Moses was trying to do that. And Moses' obedience was that he stretched forth his hand. And then we see the next step is redemption beheld. They learned what redemption was all about when they went through the Red Sea. The waters of the Red Sea divided during the night. What happened? The Bible says that an east wind blew, and it blew the waters away from the waters. Now that's some people today, the theologians, quote unquote, think that it wasn't the Red Sea that they crossed in. They crossed in the Sea of Reeds. A reed is R-E-E-D, and red is R-E-D. But a Sea of Reeds was only a marsh. And God's going to destroy the entire Egyptian army in a marsh? Drowning them? I don't think that's the way it worked. I believe it was the Red Sea. Now, I know that there's great scholars that have, but I believe the Bible. I just believe what God said. I don't have to have all this proof to believe the miracles of the Bible. I just really don't. And you say, well, you're just so gullible, you'd believe anything. Well, I wouldn't believe anything, But I do believe, I would not believe that everybody's going to heaven. I guarantee that. You know why? Because the Bible tells us that they're not. But, they're all on their way to hell. But as many as believed in him, To them gave he power to become the sons of God. You know, those are the ones that are going to heaven, as many as believed in him. So the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and he made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And I've heard this one from the theologians as well. Well, it wasn't really like a road through the ocean. It was like when a tsunami is coming and it sucks the water out, and and everything, and then the water come rushing back in. Now, the waters were gone long enough for the millions of people that were with Israel to go through, and the Egyptian army to follow along. Now, if they was in a swamp or a marsh, that wouldn't be possible. And notice what it. Everybody tries to limit God, but He's already told us He's omnipotent. What does that mean? All powerful. He can do anything He wants to. And we don't have a clue how He did it, but God said He did, and I believe it. And so what is He? He says He made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. The people went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and I can imagine the first group of people. They were saying, but what if the waters come down? What if we I never learned how to swim. Well, you should have learned. No, that would be cruel, wouldn't it? but they were going through. I don't know if they could see fish swimming around or whatever it was. That the waters were piled up on both sides of them, and they walked through on dry ground. There's something miraculous going on. There's something supernatural going on. And that's who God is. He's not natural like we are. We try to put him in the small box. God only can do this many things because man can only do this many things. But we're not, we can't put God in a small box because God is in the entire universe. God is as big as this universe is. Some people say, well, the universe is growing. Oh, it's just growing, expanding all the time. That's man's idea. That's not God's. God is, but it's as big as God is. The universe is. And the people went to the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters were a wall onto the left hand and on the right hand. And the Lord fought for the children of Israel. There they were going through. They were marching, walking along, and they were. I'm hoping they were enjoying the trip, because they had never seen anything like this. They had never been anywhere that they could see the things that they were seeing, and they were going through, and they were seeing all this water and all this stuff going on, and the Lord was fighting for them the whole time. And in the morning watch, it said, the Lord looked on the Egyptian host as they pursued and went in after Israel into the midst of the sea. Oh, my goodness, now they're coming. Now they think they can overtake Israel, and they think this is just a natural phenomenon. And notice what it says that God did. He troubled the host of the Egyptians. He troubled them. I'd be troubled too. But I'm thinking they began to look around and they said, hey, did you notice that we're in the middle of the ocean? We're in the middle of this all this water on both sides of us. And I'm thinking that he troubled them in their minds. And they must have began to think, what in the world are we doing? What if he lets go of the water? What if he just lets it come down on us? And then he took their wheels off their chariots. Took their wheels off their chariots. They were going along, and you know, and their horses. I mean, they were about to catch up with the Israelites, and then he takes the wheels off their chariots. And they look around and they say, we've made a mistake. I mean, we've made a big mistake. And you know what they did? The Lord overthrew the Egyptians right there in the midst of the sea. And he told Moses, when the last Hebrew took his step up on the beach on the other side, he told Moses, reach out your hand again. And the waters came crushing in on the entire Egyptian army. And they were all drowned in the sea. They were all drowned right there in the middle of the sea. And the Egyptian army drowned. And why did God do this? I mean, the Egyptians had already sounded retreat. Hey, retreat, you know. And then the waters came in. It was just a little too late. They should have questioned all this before they got in there. But you know what? Where was Pharaoh all this time? He was not leading the army. You think he's crazy enough to go in the midst of the water, the midst of the ocean, in a situation like this? He's already seen 10 times what God can do, and he, you know, and there they are. They're out there all by themselves, and he's watching from the beach. You know, yep, looks like we're in trouble. You know, looks like our guys are. I hope they can hold their breath a long time. You know, that was the end of the Egyptian army. They were drowned in the Red Sea, and the Lord instructed Moses, you know, to put his hand out, and then the sea came back in. The Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The Lord destroyed all of the host of the Egyptians. He saw, and then what did Israel see? Israel saw the mighty works of their God. And it caused two things in them. They feared the Lord, and they believed in Moses, his servant. They feared God, and they believed in Moses, his servant. But that doesn't mean they didn't still complain. I believe they had gone to college to learn how to complain. Complaint was the best thing they knew how to do. Next week we're gonna see the redemption song that they sang up there on the other side of the river. And you would have been singing too if you'd just seen all the things that had gone on. I wish they had remembered that, though. Long time they didn't remember that very long at all. They got out into the wilderness, and things started happening, and they just complained and complained and complained, kind of like we do. I mean, when you know, well, I wish you know, I wish our church did things like this church over here or that church over there. But you know what? If we did that, we wouldn't be our church, would we? I believe that we ought to do what God wants us to do. And I believe if we do what God wants us to do, we'll be just fine. You say, well, we got all these empty seats. You think God knows about that? He knows about that. But he pared down 30,000 men for Gideon down to about 300 and won a great battle without even firing a shot. And there he was. We should believe in God. He can take this group of people that we are. Say, well, we're old. Yes. Some people are old, you know. I'm 72. And 72 is not old. I found that out when I got 72. I knew it wasn't old. I think those people that are 98, 90, and 100, they're old. And everybody else thinks, well, I think you're a nut. I think I am too sometimes. So we'll see redemption blessing next week in Moses' song unto the Lord. And boy, they sang and they sang and they sang. And you would too if you just experienced what they had experienced, the deliverance of the Lord. Let's pray. Father, we love you. We're thankful for everything that we do and say. I pray that you'd bless and just take us and use us for your glory. And Lord, that everything would be to honor you and to glorify your name. And we'll thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. For all those that are listening online, God bless you. Hope you get better real soon. And Lord willing, hope to see you on Sunday. And we'll just enjoy the great things of the Lord together. Amen. God bless you.